Hello friends, so we've just finished the second full week of the year, and in last week's review, we've talked about two improvements to focus on. One is sticking to the plan, and second is focus from macro to micro. Now, in terms of sticking to the plan, I realized that I'm still quite bad at it because when I'm in the zone, I didn't want to break that concentration. So the effect is yet to be seen. But in terms of focusing from macro to micro and dealing with distraction, using that implementation intention, it was working 50-50%, and then now as I actively remind myself more, I can see that I'm now reminding myself maybe 75% of the time. So we can see the habits building and it's getting more and more effective. So in day 8, we talked about using the countdown clock and how effective it is. I was thinking, in a sense, the countdown clock is still a bit passive. Don't get me wrong, the effectiveness is still there, no doubt. But in a sense, having a countdown clock is a bit like enforcing the Pareto's principle, the 80-20 rule. In 1896, the Italian economist Wilfredo Pareto observed that 80% of the land is owned by 20% of the people. So in other words, 80% of the outcomes are due to 20% of the causes. And also in maths and statistics, the Pareto's distribution describes the heavy distribution with a long tail. So if we look at the distribution, we've got Pareto's distribution like that. So we've got 80% of the wealth concentrated in 20% of the people, and then 80% of the population concentrated on the long tail 20%. So this applies to us when doing our task as well. That's 80% of the outcome is caused by 20% of our actions. And when doing the task, we want to flip that. We want to focus on that 20% of the actions to get the 80% of the outcome. So aside from last week's improvement, this week I also want to include the Pareto's principle in it as well and focus on that 20% actions. So yeah, let's see how it works out.